All right, today we're digging into an analysis that looks at the US-Iran conflict through a really startling new lens. It's a story of unexpected resistance, alliances that are starting to fracture, and a pretty shocking accusation that this war is being fought for private profit, not for the public good.
So, the whole analysis we're exploring today really kicks off with one big central puzzle. Why is a global superpower, after decades of being the world's dominant military force, apparently struggling in its conflict with Iran? According to the source material, the answer, well, it's not simple at all.
To get to the bottom of this, we first have to see how this conflict just completely breaks the mold of America's more recent wars. The argument being made is that the US is fighting a kind of war it just hasn't been prepared for in decades. And this slide really gets right to the heart of it. The source draws a sharp contrast between past adversaries like Iraq and Afghanistan, which it calls beaten down nations, and Iran. Iran is portrayed as a capable, wealthy state with a powerful national army. So the idea is this is not just a repeat of past campaigns. This quote from the analysis itself really drives that point home. The argument is that Iran's sheer scale, its economic strength, and its strategic location make it a much more formidable opponent than the US has faced in a direct conflict for over 40 years. And this unexpected challenge is reportedly creating some real-world strain on the US military. The source points to a report from the American Enterprise Institute, which suggests the conflict's intensity is putting America's weapon stockpiles under immense pressure. It's raising some serious questions about readiness for a long-term war. But the problems aren't just on the battlefield. The source argues that this war is also coming with a heavy price tag, both in terms of diplomatic relationships and in actual military assets. A really crucial point here is this growing sense of isolation. The analysis claims that key European and NATO allies are, in effect, showing a red signal and refusing to get on board with the war effort. We're talking about major players here, like the UK, France, Italy, and Spain. And this isn't just political posturing, you know? The analysis gives some pretty concrete examples. Italy has reportedly blocked the US from using its critical Sigonella military base, and Spain has allegedly closed its airspace to American warplanes that are involved in the conflict. These are huge logistical setbacks. Now, beyond the diplomacy, the analysis highlights a stark human and material cost. It claims that as of April 1st, 15 American soldiers had been killed in the conflict. And on top of that, another 348 soldiers have been injured, some of them very seriously. And meanwhile, the material losses are just piling up. According to the source, this includes more than a dozen of those high-tech Reaper drones being destroyed by Iran. This slide gives you a sense of the financial drain. The estimated loss just from destroyed radar systems alone is reported to be over 33,600 crore rupees. To put that in perspective, that's over $4 billion US. That's a staggering figure that really underscores the economic toll this is taking. So while facing all these headwinds abroad, the source claims the administration is also dealing with a massive wave of opposition right here at home. Apparently, the conflict has ignited some widespread public anger. And just to get a sense of the scale of this, the analysis points to the No Kings rally. It reportedly saw around 8 million people take to the streets to protest the war and the president's authority to even wage it. Yeah, this was not a localized event. It was a nationwide movement. The report states these protests happened in over 3,300 locations across all 50 states. That signifies some really deep and broad-based opposition to the whole thing. Okay, so now we get to what is probably the most explosive claim in this entire analysis. It shifts from talking about the costs of war to asking a very provocative question. Who is actually benefiting from this conflict? This quote really sets the stage for a very serious accusation. The source is alleging that the motives behind this war might be less about national security and way more about personal financial gain for people in power and their families. So let's break down what the source alleges, and it cites outlets like the Wall Street Journal and France 24. First, it claims arms lobbyists who donated millions to a Trump-aligned super PAC, that's a kind of political fundraising group, are now seeing a huge return on that investment. Second, that the president's sons are backing a drone company, Power US, that's suddenly seeing high demand from the Pentagon. And third, that crypto traders with inside connections are cashing in on confidential information. And the analysis really zooms in on this specific deal, presenting it as particularly suspicious.
A crypto company called World Liberty Financial, which reportedly has a 65% stake held by Trump's sons and his son-in-law, signed a major deal with Pakistan just 1 month before the war with Iran kicked off.
So what does this all add up to? Well, the source material frames this entire conflict around a central and, frankly, a deeply troubling dilemma.
The analysis really doesn't mince words here, quoting an expert who argues that the presidency is being treated less like a public service and more like a business opportunity to enrich a select group of people.
And this brings us right to the core tension presented in the source. Is the driving principle of this war really America first, like it's publicly claimed? Or, as this analysis alleges, is it actually about putting the Trump family first? And that brings us to the final, lingering question posed by this analysis. It forces you to consider whether a nation's most critical decisions, matters of war and peace, are being guided by the collective national interest, or if they could be steered by the private financial interests of a powerful few. It's a question we're thinking about